Lonesome Traveler, Chapter 3, Part 3. I'd put a block of wood under the wheels of the car and watch it writhe and crack as the car eased up on it and stopped, and sometimes didn't at all but just rolled on, leaving the wood flattened to the level of the rail with up-thrusted cracky ends. Afternoons in Lowell long ago, I'd wondered what the grimy men were doing with big boxcars and blocks of wood in their hands. And when far above the ramps and rooftops of the great gray warehouse of eternity, I'd see the immortal canal clouds of red brick time. The drowse so heavy in the whole July city, it would hang even in the dank gloom of my father's shop outside, where they kept big rolled trucks with little wheels and flat silvery platforms and junk in corners and boards. The ink died into the oily wood as deep as a black river, folded there and forever. Contrasts for the white puff cream clouds outdoors that you just can see standing in the dust-modded hall door over the old 1830 Lowell Dickens red brick, floating like in an old cartoon with little bird designs floating by two, all of a gray daguerreotype mystery in the hortly spermy waters of the canal. Thus, in the same way, the afternoon in the SP red brick alley, remembering my wonder at the slow grinding movement and squee of gigantic boxcars and flats and gons rolling by with that overpowering steel dust crunching closh and clack on steel, the shudder of the whole steely proposition, a car going by with the brake on, and so the whole brake bar, monstre empoudrement de fer en enfer. The frightening fog nights in California, when you can see through the mist the monsters slowly passing and hear the wee squee, those merciless wheels that one time conductor Ray Miles on my student trip says, when those wheels go over your leg, they don't care about you. Same way with that wood that I sacrifice. What those grimy men had been doing, some of them standing on top of the boxcars and signaling far down the red brick canal alleys of Lowell, and some old men slowly like bums moving around over rails with nothing to do, the big cut of cars skiing by with that teeth-grinding cree-cree and gigantic hug steel bending rails into earth and making ties move. Now I knew from working as on the Sherman local on Sundays, we dealt with blocks of wood because of an incline in the ground that made cars keep going, and you had to right them, break them, and stop them up with blocks. Lessons I learned there, like tie a good brake on him. We don't want to start chasing that son of a bitch back to the city when we kick a car again him. Okay, but I'm playing the safety rules of the safety book to the T, and so now here I am, the rear man on the Sherman local. We've set out our Sunday morning preacher blossom flower car and made curtsies, bows to the Sabbath God. In the dark, everything has been arranged in that fashion, and according to old traditions, reaching back to Sutter's Mill in the time when the pioneers, sick of hanging around the hardware store all week, had to put on their best vestments and smoked and jaw-bleaked in front of the wooden church, and old railroad men of the 19th century, the inconceivably ancient SP of another era with stove-pipe hats and flowers in their lapels, and had made the moves with the few cars into the Gold Town milk bottle with the formality and the different chew, the thinky thought. They give the sign and kick a car. With wood in hand, I run out. The old conductor yells, "You'd better brake him, he's going too fast, can you get him?" Okay, I run, and I take it easy on a jog and wait, and here's the big car looming over me, has just switched into its tracks, from the locomotive tracks, where the lead, all the angling and arrowing's been done, and the conductor who throws the switch reads the tag list, throws the switch. So up the rungs I go, and according to safety rules, with one hand I hang on, with the other I brake slowly, according to a joint, easing up till I reach the cut of cars waiting, and into it gently my braked boxcar bangs, zum, vibrations, things inside shake. The cradle rock-a-baby merchandise zums with it. All the cars at this impact go forward about a foot and crush wood blocks earlier placed. I jump down and place a block of wood and just neatly glue it under the steel lip of that monstrous wheel, and everything stops. And so I turn back to take care of the new kick car, which is going down the other track and also quite fast. I jog, finding wood en route. Run up the rung, stop it, safety rule hanging on one hand, forgetting the conductors, tie a good brake on it. Something I should have learned then, as a year later in Guadalupe, hundreds of miles down the line, I tied poor brakes on 3 flats. The flat hand brakes that have old rust and loose chains, poorly with one hand safety-wise hanging on in case unexpected joint would jolt me off, and under merciless wheels whose action with blocks of woods my bone would belly. Bam! At Guadalupe, they kicked a cut of cars against my poorly braked flats, and everything began parading down in the inline back to San Luis Obispo. If it hadn't been for the alert old conductor looking out of the crummy switch lists to see this parade and running out to throw switches in front of it and unlocking switch locks as fast as the cars kept coming, a kind of comic circus act with him in floppy clown pants and hysterical horror darting from switch stand to switch stand, and the guys in back hollering, the pot taking off after the cut and catching it, almost pushing it, but the couplers closing just in time and the engine braking everything to a stop. 30 feet almost in front of the final derail, which the old winded conductor couldn't have finally made, we'd all have lost our jobs. My safety rules. Brakes had not taken momentum of steel and slight land inclines into consideration. If it had been Sherman at Guadalupe, I would have been hated. Caraway! Guadalupe is 275.5 miles down the shining rail from San Francisco, down on the subdivision named after it, the Guadalupe. The whole coast division begins at those sad dead-end blocks of 3rd and Townsend, where grass grows from soot beds like green hair of old Toke heroes long slanted into the ground like the railroad men of the 19th century whom I saw in the Colorado plains at little train order stations slanted into the ground of the hard, dry dust cake, boxed, mock-lipped, puking grit, fondled by the cricket, gone aslant, so far sunk grave-wise, box deep into the foot of the soul of the earth. Oh, you'd think they had never suffered and dropped real sweats to that unhumped earth, had never voiced juicy sorrow words from black-caked lips. Now make no more noise than the tire of an old Tin Lizzie, the tin of which is singing in the sun winds this afternoon. Ah, spectral Cheyenne Wellses and train-ordered Denver, Rio Grandes, Northern Pacifics, and Atlantic coastlines, and one-posts of America, all gone. The coast division of the old SP was built in upteen 022 and used to run a little crazy crooked main line up and down the hills of Bayshore like a crazy cross-country track for European runners. This was their gold-carrying bandito, held-up railroad of the old Zorro night of inks and furly-caped riders. But now 'tis the modern old Coast Division SP and begins at those dead-end blocks, and at 4:30 the frantic Market Street and Sampson Street commuters, as I say, come hysterically running for their 112 to get home on time for the 5:30 television's howdy doody of their gun-totting Neil Cassidy to Hopalong Children's. 1.9 miles to 23rd Street, another 1.2 Newcomb, another 1.0 to Paul Avenue, and etc. These being the little piss stops on that 5-mile short run through 4 tunnels to mighty Bayshore. Bayshore at milepost 5.2 shows you, as I say, that gigantic valley wall sloping in with sometimes in extinct winter dusks, the huge fogs milking, furling me rolling in without a sound, but as if you could hear the radar hum, the old-fashioned dull mask's mouth of Potato Patch Jack London, old scroll waves crawling in across the gray bleak North Pacific with a wild fleck, a fish, the wall of a cabin, the old arranged wall works of a sunken ship, The fish swimming in the pelvic bones of old lovers lay tangled at the bottom of the sea like slugs no longer discernible bone by bone, but melted into one squid of time. That fog, that terrible and bleak Seattle-ish fog, that potato patch wise comes bringing messages from Alaska and from the Aleutian Mongol, and from the seal and from the wave and from the smiling porpoise. That fog at Bayshore you can see waving in and filling in rills and rolling down and making milk on hillsides, and you think it's hypocrisy of men makes these hills grim. To the left at the Bayshore mountain walls, there's all your San Fran Bay pointing across the broad flat blues to the Oakland lostness, and the mainline train runs and clackety clicks and makes the little Bayshore yard office a passing fancy thing so important to the railroad men, the little yellowish shack of clerks and paper onion skin train order lips and clearances of conductors and way bills tacked and typed and stamped from Kearney Neb and on with mooing cows that have moved over 3 different railroads, and all ye such facts that passed in a flash, and the train negotiates on, passing Visitation Tower, that by old Okie Railroad man of now California ain't at all Mexicanized in pronunciation, Visitacio, but is simply called Visitation, like on Sunday morning. And oft you hear Visitation Tower, Visitation Tower, milepoint 6.9, the following 8.6 Butler Road, far from being a mystery to me by the time I became a brakeman, was the great sad scene of yard clerking nights when at the far end of an 80-car fray, the numbers of which with my little lamp I was taking down as I crunched over the gravel and all back tired, measuring how far I had to go by the sad street lamp of Butler Road shining up ahead at the wall's end of long black sad-mouthed long cars of ye iron red arc railroad night, with stars above, and the smash-by zipper and the fragrance of locomotive coal smoke, as I stand aside and let them pass, and far down the line at night around that South San Fran airport, you can see that son of a bitch red light waving, Mars signal light waving in the dark, big red markers blowing up and down and sending fires in the keen, pure, lost purity, lovely skies of old California in the late sad night of autumn, spring, come fall, winter, summertime, tall like trees. All of it. And Butler Road, no mystery to me, no blind spot in this song, but well known. I could also measure how far I had to go by the end of the gigantic rose neon 6 miles long, you'd think, saying, West Coast Bethlehem Steel, as I'd be taking down the numbers of boxcars, JC 74635, Jersey Central, DNRG 38376, NYC and PR, and all the others. My work was almost done when that huge neon was even with me, and at the same time this meant the sad little street lamp of Butler Road was only 50 feet away, and no cars beyond that, because that was the crossing where they'd cut them and then fold them over into another track of the South City yards. Things of break significance, switch significance I only got to learn later. So SF milepost 9.3, and what a bleak little main street. Oh my goodness, the fog rolled in fine from there, and the little neon cocktails with a little cherry on a toothpick, and the bleak fog light green chronicles and 10-cent sidewalk tin clonks, and your bars with slick-haired ex-troopers inside drinking in October in the pool hall and all, where I'd go for a few bars of candy and desultory soups between chores as yard clerk when I was a yard clerk, digging the lostness on that side, the human, and then having to go to the other end, a mile towards the bay, to the great armor and swift slaughter plants where I'd take down the number of meat reefers and sometimes have to step aside and wait while the local came in and did some switching, and the tag man or conductor would always tell me which ones were staying, which ones going. Always at night, and always soft ground of like manure, but really rat ground underneath. The countless rats I saw and threw rocks at till I felt like being sick. I'd hurry, fleeing as from nightmare from that hole, and sometimes fabricated phony numbers instead of going to near a gigantic woodpile which was so full of rats it was like their tenement. and the sad cows mooing inside were little ratty Mexicans and Californians with bleak, unpleasant, unfriendly faces, and going to work jalopies were milling around in their bloody work, till finally I worked it on a Sunday, the Armour and Swift yards, and saw that the bay was 60 feet away, and I'd never know it, but a dump yard, a wreck of crap and rat havens, worse than ever, though beyond it the water did ripple bluely, and did in the sad morning clarity show clear flat mirrors clear to Oakland and the Sunday morning and Alameda places across the way. And in the hard wind of the Sunday morning I heard the mutter of the tinware walls of broken down abandoned slaughterhouse warehouses, the crap inside and dead rats killed by that local on-off nights, and some even I might have hit with my jacket full of protective rocks, but mostly systematically killed rats laying around in the keen, heartbreaking, cloud-haunted, wild wind day, with big silver airplanes of civilized hope taking off across the stinking swamp and filthy tin flats for places in the air. Ga ba, yeah, it has a horrible, filthy moaning sound. You'd hear eider downing in that fly dung those hideaway silos and murdered tin paint aisles, scum of salt and bah, and harbors of the rat, the axe, the sledgehammer, the moo cows and all that. One big South San Francisco horror. There's your milepost 9.3. After that, the rushing train takes you to San Bruno, clear and far around a long bend circling the marsh of the SSF airport, and then on to Lomita Park, milepost 12.1, where the sweet commuter trees are, and the redwoods crash and talk about you when you pass in the engine, the boilers of which redly cast your omnipotent shadow out on the night. You see all the little ranch-style California homes, and in the evening people sipping in living rooms open to the sweetness, the stars, the hope that little children must see when they lay in little beds in bedtime and look up and a star throbs for them above the railroad earth. And the train calls, and they think tonight the stars will be out. They come, they leave, they lave, they angelicize, me. I must come from a land where they let the children cry. Me, I wish I was a child in California when the sun's gone down and the zipper crashes by and I could see through the redwood or the fig tree my throbbing hope light shining just for me and making milk on Permanente, hill-size horrible calf cement factory or no. Rats of South City slaughterhouses or no. I wish I was a little child in a crib in a little ranch-style sweet house with my parents sipping in the living room with their picture window pointing out on the little backyard of lawning chairs and the fence, the ranch-style brown-pointed full fence, the stars above, the pure, dry, golden smelling night, and just beyond a few weeds and blocks of wood and rubber tires, bam, the main line of the old SP and the train flashing by, toom, to boom, the great crash of the black engine, the grimy red men inside, the tender, then the long snake freight train and all the numbers and all the whole thing flashing by. Crash, thunder. The world is going by, all of it finally terminated by the sweet little caboose with its brown, smoky light inside where old conductor bends over waybills and up in the cupola the rear man sits looking out once in a while and saying to himself all black and the rear markers red, the lamps in the caboose rear porch, and the thing all gone howling around the bend to Burlingame to Mountain View to the sweet San Jose's of the night, the further down Gilroy's, Cardaneros, Corporals, and that bird of Chittenden of the dawn. Your Logans of the strange night all be lit and insected and mad, your Watsonvilles, sea marshes, your long line and main line tracks sticky to the touch of in the midnight star. Milepost 46.9 is San Jose scene of 100 interested bums lounging in the weeds along the tracks with their packs of junk, their buddies, their private water tanks, their cans of water to make coffee or tea or soup with, and their bottles of Tokay wine or usually Muscatel. The Muscat, California is all around them. In the sky blue, tatterly white clouds are being shoved across the top of the Santa Clara Valley from Bayshore, where a high fog wind came and through South City gaps too, and the peace lies heavy in the sheltered valley where the bums have found a temporary rest. Hot drowse in the dry weeds, just hollows of dry reeds stick up and you walk against them crashing. Well, boy, how's about a shot of rum to Watsonville? This ain't rum, boy, this is a new kind of shit. A colored hobo sitting on a shitty old newspaper of last year and's been used by Rat-Eyed Jim of the Denver Viaducts who came through here last spring with a package of dates on his back. Things ain't been as bad as this since 1906. Now it's 1952 October and the dew is on the grain of this real ground. One of the boys picks up a piece of tin from the ground. That's got bounced off a gond in a sudden spram of freight ramming together in the yard from the buckling slack. Boom! Pieces of tin go flying off, fall in the weeds outside track number 1. The hobo puts the tin on rocks over the fire and uses it to toast some bread, but drinking Tokay and talking to the other boys, and toast burns just like in tile kitchen tragedies. The bum comes, curses angrily because he lost some bread, and kicks a rock and says, 28 years I spent inside the walls of Dannemora, and I had my fill of exciting panoramas of the great actions, like when drunken cane men wrote me that letter from Minneapolis, and it was just about Chicago sponges. I told him, look a jock, you can't. Well, I wrote him a letter anyways. Ain't been a soul listening because no one listens to a bum. All the other bums are bludgeon gapsting, and you can't find nor financiate your way out of that. All talking all at the same time, and all of them confused. You have to go back to the railroad man to understand. Like, say, you ask a man, where's track net 109? No. If it's a bum, you'll say, cart right over there, daddy, and see if the old boy in the blue bandana knows. I'm Slim Holmes Hubbard from Ruston, Louisiana. I ain't got no time, ain't got no knowledge to make me ways of knowing where that track 109. Only things I got is I want a dime. If you can spare a dime, I'll go along my way peacefully. If you can't, I'll go along my way peacefully. You can't win, you can't lose. And from between here to Bismarck, Idaho, I got nothing but lost and lost and lost everything I ever had. You've got to admit these bums into your soul when they talk like that. Most of them rasp. Track 109, Chillicothe, Iowa, through the stubbles and spits of their beard, and wander off dragging packs so huge, profound, heavy, dismembered bodies are in there, you'd think. Red eyes, wild, wild hair. The railroad men look at them with amazement, and at first sight they never look again. What would wives say? If you ask a railroad man what track is 109, he stop chewing his gum, shift his package, his coat lamp or lunch, and turn and spit and squint at the mountains to the east and roll his eyes very slowly in the private cavern of his eye bone between brow bone and cheekbone and say, still deliberating and having deliberated, they call it track 109, but they should call it 110. It's right next to the ice platform. You know, the ice house up there. Yeah, there it is. From track 1 on the main line, here we start the numbers, but the ice house makes them jump. They make a turn, and you have to go across track 110 to get to 109. But you never have to go to 109 too often. So it's just like 109 was just missing from the yard. Number C, yeah, I know it for sure. I know it for sure now. And there she is, thanks. I gotta get there fast. That's the trouble with the railroad. You always gotta get there fast. Because if you don't, it's like turning down a local on the phone and say you want to turn over and go to sleep. Like Mike Ryan did last Monday. He's saying to himself, and we walk, wave, and are gone. This is the cricket in the reed. I sat down in the Pajaro river bottoms and lit fires and slept with my coat on top of my brakeman's lantern and considered the California life starting at the blue sky. The conductor is in there hanging around waiting for his train orders. When he gets them, he'll give the engineer the highball sign, a little side-to-side wave of the palmed hand, and off we go. The old hoghead gives orders for steam. The young fireman complies. The hoghead kicks and pulls at his big lever throttle and sometimes jumps up to wrestle with it like hugely an angel in hell and pulls the whistle twice. Toot, toot. We're leaving, and you hear the first chug of the engine. Chug. A failure like chug a lot. Zoom. Chug, chug. The first movement. The train's underway.